When you think about the flaws of an LLM, you probably think about things like hallucination, sycophancy, too much or too little tool calling, and just a general lack of intelligence. But in my opinion, while all of those things are pain points when it comes to using LLMs, I think there's one which is the biggest one and also the most unknown. And that is LLMs simply do not have a concept of simplicity. Because of the nature of how training works, specifically RL, it's very hard to train and quantify quote unquote when X should be done. This means that if the LLM takes more steps than it should have taken to complete a task, since the task was successfully completed, the LLM is going to be rewarded. And as a result, it's going to learn those behaviors. You probably already know that the models have gotten very good at fixing mistakes right in front of them. And that's because those are quantifiable. While just 6 months ago, models would do silly mistakes that wouldn't even allow the code to run, today's models were trained to not do those mistakes anymore. Again, you do RL on a model, if the bug goes away, it gets rewarded. But the reality is that it's extremely hard to train a model on quote-unquote what's good enough now, or quote-unquote situational awareness, knowing when a task is complete enough for our particular goal. And maybe you're thinking, well, we can just reward the model based on how many steps it took to complete the task. So if it takes 100 steps to complete it, you'll reward it less than if it took less steps than that. But that again leads us to the same problem, which is the amount of steps are always going to be dependent on the context or the situation. For us humans, that's usually very easy to evaluate. For a model, not so much. And this is exactly why you see things like I could fix this in 5 minutes, but the AI took 1 hour. That's not because the AI took longer on the exact same steps, because actually the AI can write code faster, can explore a project faster. The only thing that changed there was that the AI took a huge amount of steps compared to what it actually was necessary in the first place. In other words, it's because AI turned a simple thing into a complex thing. And this to me is the most frustrating and hard to get around problem with LLMs. I constantly have to bring it back to reality and let it know that it's taking a huge amount of time, it's over-engineering everything, and it's not correctly understanding the context of the project. And yes, this is true even when I give the model all of the context possible. There's always going to be actions that the model takes where it's simply going to start wandering around and doing everything under the sun, and the simplest solution is right in front of it. Unfortunately, this is the way that the models were trained, and it's very hard to go against this behavior. For example, just a couple of days ago, I thought to myself, I'm going to give AI agents another try, just to implement this very simple tool that I need to teach. And half an hour into it, I saw that the AI was just complicating everything, and I would have taken much less time because the AI was already creating data models, data classes, tests, test stubs, even though I told it that it was a simple tool, an internal tool, and we didn't want any complexity. Now, of course, if I go ahead and tell it that I don't want you to do this, I don't want you to do that, then eventually it's going to stop doing those things. But my point is that the amount of work that it takes to do that, I might as well just do it manually, much faster, and the end result ends up being much better in terms of quality.